The frost of early dawn glittered on the marble steps of the Hartwell mansion like a cruel decoration. Richard Hartwell's breath came out in white clouds as he stood frozen in horror. His 7-year-old daughter, Lily, lay curled up on the steps, her face pale, her lips blue, her small body wrapped in a filthy, torn blanket. But she wasn't alone. Beside her was a boy, black, maybe 12 years old, his thin frame trembling from the cold, his arms wrapped around her protectively. Both of them were still. For one awful second, Richard thought they were dead. "Lily!" he shouted, his voice cracking the quiet morning. He stumbled forward, his polished shoes slipping on the icy stone. As he dropped to his knees, the boy's eyelids fluttered open. Beneath those lashes were eyes dark and brave, eyes that had seen too much of the world for a child so young. "She's okay," the boy whispered hoarsely. "I kept her warm. I kept her safe." Richard's heart nearly broke at those words. He gathered Lily into his arms, feeling how cold she was, cold, but breathing, alive. Tears burned his eyes. "Who are you?" he asked, turning to the boy. "How long have you been out here?" "All night," the boy murmured before his eyes rolled back, and he collapsed onto the steps. A stranger's son had saved his daughter. But to understand how two children from opposite worlds came together on that frozen morning, we have to go back 24 hours earlier. Marcus Williams sat on a park bench across from the public library, watching the sun dip behind the glittering skyline. The streetlights flickered on, scattering halos of light over sidewalks dusted with frost. At 12, Marcus already knew more about survival than most adults. 2 years had passed since his mother's death. Cancer had taken her quickly, faster than charity, faster than hope, faster than they could raise the money for treatment. After she was gone, the foster system had swallowed him whole. 3 homes in 6 months, each one colder than the last. The final one broke him, the Hendersons, who smiled for social workers but fed their foster kid scraps. They kept the government checks and left the children hungry, exhausted, and scared. Marcus had run. He'd rather be homeless than a prisoner. And so he learned. He learned where the restaurant dumpsters stayed cleanest, which bus stations were safe, which nights to avoid the alleys. But the winter, that was something even the strongest couldn't outlast forever. He tugged his paper-thin jacket tighter. The weather forecast had said 10 degrees tonight, maybe lower. His blanket, scavenged behind a thrift store, barely covered his shoulders. The sleeping bag he used to have had been stolen weeks ago. He was tired. So tired, and so hungry his stomach had stopped growling hours ago. Just 5 minutes of rest, he told himself. Just 5 minutes. But then a sound. Crying. Soft, muffled, scared. Marcus blinked, sat up straight. He followed the sound down the street, toward an iron gate taller than any fence he'd ever seen. Behind it stood a mansion, its windows glowing gold. And there on the front steps sat a little girl in pink pajamas, barefoot, her arms around her knees. Marcus hesitated. Kids from places like this didn't talk to kids like him. Still, he called softly, "Hey, you okay?" The girl's head snapped up. "I'm locked out," she whimpered. "The door won't open. I press the doorbell, but nobody comes. I'm so cold." He looked at the house, at the expensive cars, the glowing chandeliers, the silent front door. "You knocked." She nodded, tears on her cheeks. "Nobody hears me. The house is too big." Marcus stared at her small, shaking body, the snow starting to drift across the steps. His chest tightened. She wouldn't survive the night. Not like that. He could walk away. He could save himself. Nobody would blame him. He was just a homeless boy, freezing and exhausted. But in his mind, he heard his mother's voice, as clear as if she were standing beside him. "We might not have money, Marcus, but we have our hearts. Never lose that." He looked up at the sky where snowflakes spun in the wind and made his choice. "I'm coming over," he said. The gate was 10 feet high, but Marcus had climbed worse. His fingers, stiff with cold, gripped the bars. He pulled himself up and dropped down onto the other side, landing hard but steady. The girl watched him with wide blue eyes as he walked up the long driveway. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Marcus," he said. "What's your name?" "Lily," she sniffled. "Are you going to help me?" "I'm going to try." He banged on the huge front door, pressed the doorbell until his hand ached. Nothing. No one came. "I told you," Lily said softly. "Nobody hears. Daddy's gone on a trip. The night guard doesn't come till morning." "Do you have a phone?" "It's inside," she said, crying harder. "I just came out to look at the stars, and the door locked behind me." Marcus looked at her, then at the endless white sky. It was already past 10. They wouldn't last till morning. "Okay," he said, sitting down beside her. "We're going to get through this. Together." "Together?" she echoed, her voice small. "But you don't even know me." "Doesn't matter. You need help. I'm here." And then, without a word, Marcus took off his jacket, his only jacket, and wrapped it around her shoulders. Then he spread his blanket over both of them and pulled her close, trying to share what little warmth he had left. Lily looked at him, eyes full of guilt. "Now you'll be cold." "I've been cold before," he said softly. "But you've never been this cold. You stay warm first." He smiled faintly. "That's the rule." It was a small, human miracle. Two children, strangers from opposite worlds, bound by the simplest act of love, the choice to stay. Lily's shivering slowed. Her head rested against Marcus's shoulder. "Tell me about your mom," she said suddenly. He blinked, surprised. "How did you know I was thinking about her?" "You look sad," she said. "I get that look when I think about my mom, too. She died when I was 5. Marcus stared at her. A rich girl with everything, and yet not everything. They weren't so different after all. "My mom died 2 years ago," he said quietly. "Cancer. We couldn't afford the treatment." "I'm sorry," Lily whispered. "That's not fair." "No, it's not," he agreed. "But she taught me something. To stay kind, even when the world isn't." Lily smiled faintly. "Is that why you're helping me?" "Yeah," Marcus said. "That's why." The snow thickened around them. The night deepened. Marcus's body was shaking uncontrollably now, but he forced himself to keep talking, telling Lily stories about beaches and music and the way his mom used to hum while cooking. Anything to keep her awake, to keep her alive. He didn't realize it yet, but his body was slipping toward hypothermia. His skin numb, his heartbeat slowing. Still he stayed, because that's who Marcus was. By dawn, the world was white and silent. The storm had passed, leaving only the faint crackle of frost on the hedges. Marcus's body had stopped shivering. He sat motionless, arms still wrapped around Lily. His face was pale, lips bluish, but his hold hadn't loosened all night. Lily stirred first. She blinked, confused, the morning light hurt in her eyes. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she was, until she saw the boy beside her, his arms locked around her like a shield. "Marcus," she whispered. She shook his shoulder gently. "Wake up, please." Nothing. Fear gripped her tiny heart. She shook him harder this time. "Marcus, wake up. You promised we'd be okay." Her cries pierced the quiet morning air. Inside the mansion, the maid, Rosa, had just arrived for her shift. She heard the faint sobs and froze. Then she ran, past the grand staircase, through the hallway, and out the front door. The sight on the steps made her scream. Within seconds, the house erupted in chaos. Guards rushed out. Someone called 911, and 15 minutes later, a black car screeched to a halt outside. The man behind the wheel paled with terror. Richard Hartwell, billionaire investor, widowed father. He didn't care about the cold marble scraping his knees as he fell beside his daughter. "Lily!" he gasped, pulling her into his arms. "Oh my God, what happened?" "I'm okay, Daddy," she whispered, her teeth chattering. "He helped me. He kept me warm." Richard turned to the boy lying beside her, the stranger who'd saved his child's life. He pressed 2 fingers against Marcus's neck. There was a pulse, weak, but there. "Get blankets," Richard barked. "Now!" When the ambulance arrived, the medics worked fast. They wrapped Marcus in thermal sheets, checked Lily's temperature, and loaded them both inside. Richard climbed in without hesitation. At the hospital, The doctors took Lily to one room and Marcus to another. Hours passed before Richard got word. "Your daughter will be fine," the doctor said with a smile. "Mild hypothermia, but she's stable." Richard exhaled in relief. "And the boy?" The doctor's expression turned grave. "Severe exposure. His core temperature dropped dangerously low. We stabilized him, but it was close. If your daughter hadn't been found when she was, neither of them would have made it." Richard looked through the window at the unconscious boy, IVs in his arm, his face ghostly white against the hospital pillow. A stranger's son had risked his life for Lily. A homeless boy, freezing and starving, had given up his only coat to save her. Something deep inside Richard cracked open. When Marcus woke, the first thing he felt was warmth. Soft sheets, the hum of machines, and the steady rhythm of beeping monitors. For a moment, he thought he was dreaming. Then he saw her, Lily, curled up on the chair beside his bed, wrapped in a blanket, asleep. Richard Hartwell sat on the other side, his expensive suit rumpled, his eyes red from exhaustion. When Marcus stirred, Richard stood immediately. "You're awake," he said quietly. Marcus tried to sit up, but pain shot through his body. "The girl, she's okay?" "She's fine," Richard said. "Because of you." Marcus relaxed, his eyes closing again. "Good," he whispered. "Then I did it right." Richard swallowed hard. He wanted to say 100 things, to thank him, to apologize, to ask why. But all that came out was, "You could have died." Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. Worth it. Those 2 words would stay with Richard for the rest of his life. Over the next few days, the story spread. Homeless boy saves billionaire's daughter from freezing to death. The headlines flooded every newspaper, every channel. Donations poured in. Strangers offered to adopt Marcus, to send money, to give him a home. But what mattered most was Lily. She refused to leave Marcus's side. "He's my hero," she said proudly. "You can't just let him go, Daddy." And for once, Richard didn't argue. The man who had built empires out of steel and ambition suddenly felt small beside 2 children who understood more about love than he ever had. He learned Marcus had no living relatives, no records of schooling, no home to return to. The social worker explained his past, the foster homes, the abuse, the running away. Richard sat silently as the truth unfolded. Then he said 4 words that changed everything. "He's coming home with us." The adoption process took months, but the bond was instant. Marcus struggled at first and used the soft beds, warm meals, or the idea of being wanted. He woke some nights expecting to be told to leave. But each time, Lily would sneak into his room, hand him her stuffed bear, and whisper, "You're my brother now. You belong here." And slowly he began to believe it. One evening, months later, Richard found Marcus sitting in the garden, watching the sunset. He approached quietly. "You never asked for anything in return," Richard said. "Why?" Marcus shrugged, looking at the fading sky. "Because my mom said if you have a chance to do good, you don't wait to be asked." Richard nodded, his voice rough. "She raised a good man." Marcus smiled faintly. "She tried." A year passed. The Hartwell mansion no longer felt like a palace of marble and silence. It was filled with laughter, music, and life. Marcus excelled in school. He joined the soccer team.